What I'm about to tell you happened just 3 blocks from where I grew up. A family of 4 vanished without a trace, leaving behind a cold dinner and a mystery that would shatter an entire community's sense of safety. But here's what makes this case truly terrifying: the twist that investigators kept hidden from the public for over 2 years. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the FBI classified this case under a protocol that officially doesn't exist. This is Elmbrook Lane. Or rather, this was Elmbrook Lane before everything changed. A quiet street in suburban Ohio where everyone knows everyone, where kids play until the streetlights come on, and the biggest drama is who forgot to take out their trash can. It's the kind of place where you leave your doors unlocked, where neighbors water each other's plants during vacation, the kind of place you feel safe, the kind of place you think nothing bad could ever happen. Until Tuesday, October 15th, 2019. This is the Anderson family's house, 1247 Elmbrook Lane. For 8 years, it was a symbol of this street's peaceful rhythm. Dad, David Anderson, 42, worked as an accountant for a local firm. Mom, Sarah, 38, taught 3rd grade at the elementary school just 6 blocks away. And their 2 kids, 8-year-old Emily, who loved horses and wanted to be a veterinarian, and 5-year-old Jacob, who collected rocks and asked a million questions about everything. They were the heart of the community, the family that hosted the annual block party, the ones who always had their Halloween decorations up first and their Christmas lights timed perfectly to music. They had dinner at 6, lights out by 10, a routine as predictable as sunrise, a family just like yours, a family that, on one ordinary Tuesday evening, simply vanished. It wasn't a sudden discovery. It was a slow burn of unease that started with the little things. Mrs. Eleanor Gable, their 67-year-old next-door neighbor, noticed it first. She's the kind of woman who knows everyone's schedule. David left for work every morning at exactly 7:32 a.m. Sarah walked out 10 minutes later to drive the kids to school. But Wednesday morning, October 16th, David's silver Honda Accord was still in the driveway at 8:15, then 9:30, then noon. I thought maybe David was sick, Mrs. Gable later told police. But their porch light was still on from the night before, and Sarah never left lights on during the day. She was very conscious about the electric bill. Wednesday evening came and went. The porch light stayed on for the 2nd night in a row. No one answered when Mrs. Gable knocked. Thursday morning, she made the decision that would change everything. She tried the front door. It was unlocked. "Hello? Everything okay in there?" Mrs. Gable called out as she stepped inside. The only response was the distant, cheerful drone of SpongeBob SquarePants playing on the living room TV, a DVD that had been looping for over 36 hours. The house was silent, unnaturally so. But it was what Mrs. Gable saw next that made her blood run cold. Picture this. You walk into a house where time seems to have stopped mid-sentence. The dining room table was set for 4. Cloth napkins folded perfectly, for glasses of water still full. In the center of the table sat a large bowl of spaghetti, stone cold, but freshly made. You could still smell the garlic and oregano in the air. David's plate had 3 bites taken. Sarah's was untouched. Emily's had been mixed into a small mountain, the way kids do when they're procrastinating. Jacob's child-sized portion was completely finished, his plastic Spider-Man fork still resting on the empty plate. But here's the detail that haunts me. Jacob's chair was pushed back from the table, as if he'd gotten up to use the bathroom and simply never returned. Mrs. Gable moved through the house like she was walking through a museum exhibit. Everything was in its place. The kitchen sink had a few clean dishes in the drying rack, evidence of Sarah's systematic approach to housework. Emily's purple backpack sat by the front door, homework half finished and scattered across the coffee table. Upstairs, the mystery deepened. The bathroom fan was still running, had been running for over 36 hours. The mirror was still fogged with condensation, as if someone had just stepped out of a hot shower. A little yellow rubber duck, Jacob's favorite, sat on the edge of the tub, still damp. In the master bedroom, Sarah's book lay open on the nightstand. reading glasses folded on top, a bookmark indicating she'd been on page 247 of a romance novel. Everything suggested a family in the middle of their evening routine. Everything except the family themselves. Mrs. Gable called 911 at 11:47 a.m. on October 17th. Detective Marcus Miller arrived at 12:23 p.m. with a standard missing persons protocol. A 20-year veteran of the Fairfield County Sheriff's Department, Miller had seen it all. Home invasions, abductions, domestic disputes gone wrong, murder-suicides. But this made no sense. I've worked cases where entire families disappeared, Detective Miller told me in an exclusive interview last month. But there's always evidence, always a sign of what happened. A struggle, packed bags, a note, something. He walked through the house with his partner, Detective Lisa Chun, the silence feeling heavier with each step. "Look," he said, pointing to the undisturbed scene. No struggle, no sign of a fight, no forced entry. The security system wasn't even armed, but it also wasn't triggered. They were right in the middle of their lives. David had bill statements spread out on his desk upstairs. Sarah had started a load of laundry that was still sitting wet in the washing machine. It's like they were raptured. The initial sweep revealed something that would become the cornerstone of the mystery. The family's cell phones were all in their usual charging spots. David's work laptop was open on the kitchen counter, showing he'd been paying bills online. The last transaction timestamp was 7:43 p.m. on Tuesday, October 15th. The security cameras that several neighbors had installed after a recent string of car break-ins showed nothing unusual. The Andersons' own doorbell camera captured David arriving home from work at 6:15 p.m. Tuesday evening. It captured Sarah pulling into the driveway at 6:22 p.m. with the kids after Jacob's soccer practice. After that, nothing. No one came. No one left. But here's where it gets weird. And this detail wasn't released to the public until much later. The cameras across the street captured something unusual at exactly 9:17 p.m. that Tuesday night. For exactly 4 seconds, every electronic device on the block experienced what the electrical company later called a minor power fluctuation. Street lights flickered. The image on the security cameras pixelated. Even battery-powered devices, smoke detectors, digital clocks, children's toys, all reset simultaneously. It was subtle, brief, the kind of thing you might not even notice unless you were specifically looking for it. The case was officially classified as a missing persons investigation. Within 48 hours, it became the largest search operation in Fairfield County's history. Search and rescue teams combed through the nearby woods. Divers searched the retention pond at the end of the street. Aviation units used thermal imaging to scan a 20-mile radius. The FBI's Child Abduction Rapid Deployment Team was called in. They found nothing, but it was what they didn't find that made this case extraordinary. No cell phone pings after 7:43 p.m. on October 15th. All 4 phones went completely silent simultaneously. No credit card activity. No social media posts. No ATM withdrawals. The family's bank accounts were never touched. David's car was in the garage, Sarah's SUV in the driveway. Both sets of keys hung on the hook by the garage door. More importantly, there were no digital footprints of preparation. No suspicious Google searches. No unusual purchases. No contact with anyone outside their normal circle. Sarah had texted her sister at 6:45 p.m. Tuesday evening about weekend plans. David had confirmed a work meeting for Thursday morning. These were not people planning to disappear. The investigation expanded. Background checks revealed a completely ordinary family. No debts beyond a typical mortgage. No affairs. No enemies. No involvement with drugs, gambling, or anything remotely suspicious. David's co-workers described him as reliable and boring in the best possible way. Sarah's fellow teachers said she was the type of person who worried if she was 5 minutes late to anything. The children's teachers reported nothing unusual in their behavior in the days leading up to the disappearance. Then came the interviews with the last people to see them alive. Here's the detail that changes everything. The Andersons didn't disappear alone that Tuesday night. They had hosted a dinner party. Tom and Lisa Brennan, their closest friends and neighbors from 2 houses down, had been invited over for dinner at 5:30 p.m. They brought their 6-year-old daughter, Maya, who was Emily's best friend. The Brennans described a completely normal evening. The adults talked about neighborhood gossip and upcoming Halloween plans while the kids played in the backyard. Sarah had made her famous lasagna, not spaghetti, as investigators initially thought. The cold spaghetti found on the table was actually the Andersons' second dinner of the evening. "We left around 8:30, Tom Brennan told investigators. The kids were getting cranky, and Maya had school the next day. David walked us to the door. Sarah hugged Lisa goodbye. Emily and Jacob waved from the living room window as we walked home. Security cameras confirmed this timeline. The Brennans' own doorbell camera showed them arriving home at 8:34 p.m. But here's the twist that investigators kept secret for 2 years. The Brennans reported that during dinner, around 7:15 p.m., David received a phone call that made him go completely pale. He stepped outside to take the call and was gone for nearly 10 minutes. When he came back, both Sarah and David seemed distracted and kept exchanging these worried looks. When Lisa asked if everything was okay, Sarah just said, "David got some unexpected news about work. We'll figure it out." Phone records show David received a call at 7:18 p.m. that lasted 8 minutes and 37 seconds. The number was traced to a payphone in downtown Columbus, 47 miles away. A payphone that, according to city records, had been decommissioned and removed 3 months earlier. This is where the Elmbrook Lane case transforms from a missing persons investigation into something that defies explanation. The phone company confirmed the call happened. The duration, the exact time, the connection, it's all documented in their system. But the originating number belonged to a payphone that no longer existed. The city of Columbus provided timestamped photographs showing the payphone's removal on July 22nd, 2019, nearly 3 months before David received the call. Investigators traveled to the location. There was nothing there but an empty patch of sidewalk and a small concrete pad where the payphone had once stood. But security cameras from a nearby bank captured something extraordinary at exactly 7:18 p.m. on October 15th, 2019. For 8 minutes and 37 seconds, a figure in dark clothing stood on that empty concrete pad, appearing to use a phone that wasn't there. The figure's face was never visible, obscured by shadows and the angle of the camera. But their posture, their gestures, the way they held their hand to their ear, it was unmistakably someone making a phone call. When the call ended, the figure walked away and simply vanished between camera angles. No nearby cameras picked up where they went. Detective Miller had the footage analyzed by the FBI's Technical Forensics Unit. Their conclusion was both simple and terrifying. The footage was authentic. No manipulation, no digital trickery. Someone, or something, had made a call from a non-existent payphone to David Anderson exactly 90 minutes before his entire family disappeared. What I'm about to tell you wasn't supposed to become public knowledge. 3 days after the impossible phone call was discovered, the case was quietly transferred from local jurisdiction to a specialized FBI unit that doesn't officially exist. Department 37, a classification that appears in no public FBI organizational charts. The original investigators were reassigned. The evidence was sealed. The case file was marked with a designation that ensures it will never be subject to Freedom of Information Act requests. But Detective Miller kept copies. And last month, facing retirement and a terminal cancer diagnosis, he decided the public deserved to know the truth. There were other cases, he told me. Similar disappearances, always families, always with the same pattern: a mysterious phone call, electronic devices glitching simultaneously, and then nothing. Complete vanishing acts with no trace. He provided me with documents that referenced 7 other cases across the Midwest between 2017 and 2020. Different states, different circumstances, but always the same elements. A phone call from a disconnected or non-existent number. Electronic interference lasting exactly 4 seconds. And entire families disappearing mid-routine. leaving behind scenes that looked like movie sets waiting for actors to return. The most disturbing case occurred in Michigan just 6 months after Elmbrook Lane. The Patterson family, 2 parents, 3 kids vanished during a backyard barbecue. Neighbors heard the children laughing 1 minute, then complete silence. The grill was still hot. The burgers were still cooking. The phone call that preceded their disappearance came from inside their own house, from a landline that had been disconnected for over a year. But the story doesn't end with disappearances. On March 3, 2022, exactly 869 days after the Andersons vanished, something impossible happened. Emily Anderson, now age 10, walked into the Fairfield County Sheriff's Department, alone, unharmed, wearing the same clothes she'd disappeared in. But they were clean, pressed, and fit her perfectly despite 2.5 years of missing childhood growth. She had no memory of where she'd been, no memory of her family, no memory of her life before that moment. But she knew her name, her address, and she kept repeating one phrase: "The call wasn't for Daddy, the call was for us." Medical examinations revealed something that shouldn't be possible. Emily had aged exactly 47 hours since her disappearance. Her hair had grown 47 hours worth. Her fingernails had grown 47 hours worth. Cellular aging tests suggested that while 869 days had passed in our world, Emily had experienced less than 2 days. She was placed in protective custody while authorities tried to understand what had happened to her. But 3 days later, Emily Anderson disappeared again. This time from a secure federal facility with guards, cameras, and multiple layers of security. The only evidence of her second vanishing was a security camera malfunction that lasted exactly 4 seconds at 9:17 p.m. Today, the house at 1247 Elmbrook Lane sits empty. It's been sold 3 times since 2019, but no family has lived there for more than a few weeks. Residents report phone calls in the middle of the night from disconnected numbers. Electronic devices malfunction for exactly 4 seconds at random times. Mrs. Gable still lives next door. She refuses to talk about what she saw that day, but neighbors say she stands at her window every evening at 9:17 p.m., watching the Anderson house. The official story remains that the Anderson family disappeared and their whereabouts are unknown. The FBI closed the case in 2021, citing lack of evidence and leads. But Department 37 is still active, still investigating, still tracking families that disappear after receiving calls that shouldn't exist. And if Detective Miller is right, if his documents are authentic, then somewhere out there, David, Sarah, and Jacob Anderson are still alive, still experiencing their own version of time in a place that exists somewhere between the phone call and the silence. The question that haunts investigators isn't just what happened to the Anderson family. It's this: in a world where families can vanish between dinner and bedtime, where calls come from phones that don't exist, where children return unchanged from years of absence, how do we know it won't happen to us? The next time your phone rings from a number you don't recognize, remember the Andersons, and maybe don't answer.